Welcome to Empire Building. I'm Wendy Papazan, and together with my 4 co-hosts, we bring you weekly unfiltered conversations about leadership, growing a big empire, and living on your own terms.
I'm Kymber Lovett-Menkiti. We are investors and wealth builders with over $75 million in combined net worth.
I'm Sarah Reynolds. We are visionaries who built more than 50 businesses with over $122 million in annual revenue.
I'm Tiffany Fikes. We've led thousands of people and do it all while being pretty good moms.
And I'm Seychelle Van Poole. We are your podcast to learn how to build big businesses and even bigger lives.
Hi, everyone. It's a new week here at Empire Building Podcast. And Kymber and I are so excited because we are continuing our scaling series today. And we've been hearing from a lot of our listeners that this is making a big impact on you and your business, and which is so exciting to us. We love to hear from our listeners. And today we're going to talk about a really important topic, which is how to scale sales. So what are the playbooks that actually work across different markets, right? So we've already gone over scaling in terms of our ops, right? That was last month's episode. And then before that, we talked about scaling when it comes to hiring. And then before that, we talked about important questions to ask in terms of scaling. And I'm excited to do this episode with Kymber. I think this is your first scaling episode being recorded, right?
It is, and I'm excited to jump in on this one because I love that we did the foundational thing. Sometimes people think you go straight to sales, and really, like, when you don't have the foundation, even if you have the sales, you'd be like, why am I not actually getting the results that I want? So it's great. You got to go in order. There's a reason that that's the order that we followed. So I'm excited for this. And talk about scaling, Sarah. I feel like people thought we scaled to like Australia recently. Did you see this? Like, we've gotten lots of inquiries about Her Best Life going international, and we do have some international, but that was an interesting place we were not scaling to.
Yeah, all of a sudden we started getting all of these discovery call requests, and we found out that there was a Her Best Life event called Her Best Life event in Australia put on by, is she a princess? I don't know. Meghan Markle. I don't know what her true
She's a princess to all
is.
of us, right? Like the great American princess, right?
Yes. So I've always been a fan of Meghan Markle. George is not a fan of Meghan Markle because he is like loyal to the king. Or queen.
Loyal to the crown.
Yes, he's loyal to the crown. And I don't think this helps him in his like of Meghan Markle. But basically, Meghan Markle put on this event. And when you Google Her Best Life, obviously, we've been Her Best Life for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now. Our organization has been named
over 5,
that.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and they started thinking that they would get access to Meghan Markle through Kymber and I.
Which, wasn't the case. And so we were really excited. And then we were like, what's happening here? But it shows you sometimes you're not scaling, but somebody else is scaling the brand.
Yes.
so it's interesting,
Exactly.
Interesting lessons in scaling. And what a little known fact that we found out that like all of these trademarks that we have, right, are not international. So we were like, that we haven't even really been able to get in touch with Meghan to say, hey, we're actually over here in the United States and we'd love for you to come hang out with us. But so if anybody's up with her people, just be like, it's going to create a little bit of confusion for us.
Yes. Well, this is actually a great scaling lesson here because the other thing, so it led to us getting a lot of discovery calls, but then we just found out from our team this week that it's also leading to like some bad reviews or thoughts of us because apparently she only showed up to the event for like 3 to 4 hours, but it was presented that she would be there for like days. And so now we're getting the fake backlash of what she's done, which is sort of goes with scaling because that's what, when you don't have systems and processes in place for scaling your business or someone hijacks your name and creates other systems or tries to, then you ruin your reputation, which is why today's episode is so important.
Well, I think in the sales process, it's also why when you're trying to scale personality or right persona, it's actually really harder, right? Because then the person comes thinking at scale that you are going to be the person. And so it's interesting as we think about sales, like what are you committing to your client base or your customer base. Because if the expectation is that Meghan Markle is going to show up and at all of the locations and be with you for the full 2 days, well, that's really not a scalable system because she can't be everywhere all at once, right? And so it's an interesting thing as we start to think about this side of it is what does your sales funnel look like? And what is the sort of your promise? And if the brand is all you, that can actually make it really difficult to scale.
I love that you brought that up, and I hadn't thought about that in the start of this episode, but I actually had a sort of big limiting belief that my team walked me through, and it took a couple years, but with scaling our business, I always thought that if a human wasn't on the sign or wasn't on the billboard or wasn't on the message, then the message would not scale. And I kept telling my team that because it was a belief I had. And honestly, I'd been taught that in marketing and reverse marketing and things like that. And multiple team members kept telling me, we don't know until we try, and we believe that the promise we make our clients, the programs that we have for our clients, the service that we give our clients will scale without a face being beside it. And our first location that we did that in was in Houston. And it launched better than any location with a face. And so what Kymber is saying here is so important is that to truly scale, you could argue that we weren't scalable before that, right? To truly scale, you do need to build systems and processes that aren't tied to one person because it's critical that it's tied to the service you give, the process you give, the promise that you're making your clients, that is what's scalable, right? So I think when we talk about scaling sales today, right, a lot of people I think scaling sales mean recruit and hire 1 million salespeople.
That's right. Yep. Well, and that's actually today, for some of our listeners, I mean, it's the one thing that I'm hearing constantly, right? When I see top folks coming back, they're I just got to grow. And there is a part of that, right? But I think it's almost the order you go in, because if you don't actually have the systems, then even if you bring all of these bodies in, then you're going to end up having this revolving door and being confused perhaps about why. But I think you're right. Sometimes you got to listen. If the coaching you're getting is you want to grow your team, just go add bodies. That's what we hear. It's the thing you're hearing most, especially right now. And that is based on an assumption that what we're going to go through, you already have in place. And if you don't, that this is the step before you go just let's go. Grow.
The big flaw in that thinking, I mean, you definitely need more people to grow. That's no question, to scale.
Yep.
But there is a flaw in terms of what we talked about last scaling episode, right? Is you need to have a repeatable process that your clients can lean on, right? And that ties to sales, right? So really scaling sales is more about repeatable systems, processes. And what I have found is having a coaching environment that creates consistent results that could literally scale across any market, right? And so it's not necessarily even more leads. It's not more agents. It's more, what are your sales systems and processes? It's a lot of people love to talk about systems and processes when it comes to operations. And we did talk about that last scaling episode. And systems and processes equally applies to your sales team.
100%.
We've learned this a lot at Empower Home, right? If you don't have scalable sales systems, more leads, what they will do is they will actually just create more chaos. And so if you don't have those systems and processes, you're just building chaos upon chaos upon chaos. And that's why, how often, Kymber, even at Her Best Life, right, we hear from female entrepreneurs, that's why I went backwards. I don't want to do that anymore. Well, it's because they didn't have these systems and processes in place first, right?
That's right. And because ultimately, right, the goal isn't just to sell more, right? It's really to create the system where anybody can plug in and win. And I think we hear so much, right, Sarah, especially from our empire builders, our women, they're burnt out. They look on when you see them in their IG feed, they look incredible. It looks amazing. And then we see them in the back room, right, when the armor's off and they're exhausted and they're tired and the rest of their life is falling down. And it's often because they are the system, right? They don't have a system that anybody can plug into. So they're trying to be everything to everybody. And that's the challenge, right? So that's really what we're going to break down is the playbook that will allow you to really scale your sales and have the life you want. Because that's really what, I think at our core, it's not just like we want you to have the biggest and most incredible business that you want. We also want you to, at the same time, have that big life. And I think this is the playbook to make sure that you're on the right track for that.
Okay, so playbook number 1 for how to scale your sales is first, every client needs a defined conversion process, okay? So every client type, I should say, needs a defined conversion process, okay? So you cannot have just like one generic sales approach unless what you are doing, you only have one type of client. Okay. So there are businesses out there that I think have one type of client, but the business that Kymber and I are in the industry that we're in, which is of course real estate, is we have different client types, right? So we've got buyers, we've got sellers, we have move up sellers, we have investors. I mean, we've got empty nesters, like you've got different types of clients that you're going to serve. And so the playbook, you've got to have different approaches to serve that type of client. Right. And so it can't just be one size fits all. And I know that a lot of people want to hear that when it comes to sales. And the truth is that you've got to meet your clients where they are. Right. So what do you need to have? So if you're like us, where you are serving buyers and you're serving sellers, which I know a lot of our listeners are in the real estate industry as well. So you need to have defined steps on how you serve buyers. Now, I know that sounds silly. At least a few years ago, I thought this sounded silly. And I'll never forget, I was in this mastermind group and I was sitting there and the leader of the mastermind group asked us for all of our numbers. So he wanted to know all of the numbers from lead to close. And we went around the room and everyone shared their numbers. Well, when it came to me, I looked down and my numbers for buyer conversion was the lowest in the whole room. I'll never forget it. From appointment happened to closed, it was 6%.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. This was actually like a decade ago. Okay. This was a long time ago. It was low. Okay. It was really low. And I was embarrassed. The listeners, you know me, Kymber knows me.
That's
know. Embarrassing. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. But I shared the truth and I said it was 6% and everyone was like, what? And I was so worked up and I went to the leader afterwards on break and I was like, oh my goodness, what do I do? At the time, I didn't even know it was that bad. A lot of our listeners, you might be 4 or 5%. You don't know because you're not tracking it, right?
Yeah. Step 1.
Yeah. Step 1. Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I went to him and he goes, well, after a buyer agreement is signed, what triggers the salesperson to do the next step? And I said, what do you mean? And he was like, well, what's the next step? And I'm like, well, they need to start showing houses. And he was like, okay, what tells them to do that? And I was like, I have to tell them to do that? And he was like, yes, you have to tell them to do that. It was this aha moment of, oh my goodness, I need to document every single step. You don't assume they know, right? So you define the steps. You define timing, right? Okay, what do they do after they show houses, right? What do they do after they get under contract? You define every step. You define the timing. You define also the expectation. So salespeople thrive when they know what's expected of them along the way, right? So when you can define, okay, with a buyer, right? I expect you to sit down with them. I expect you to do a buyer profile. After the buyer profile, I expect you to go over our buyer benefits guide. After the buyer benefits guide, I expect you to get the buyer agreement signed, right? And so on, every step of the way. And there's a process built to where they know, okay, this is what happens next. Oh my goodness. Do they go from winging it to winning because they know what to do? And so playbook number 1 is every client type needs a defined conversion process, both buyers, sellers, whatever client types you have, to where there's clarity across your sales team.
Yes. Well, and I think, I put on the brokerage hat, right? So the other side of this, and we've been doing this exact same thing when we think about attracting agents to join the brokerage. The process to onboard and bring in a brand new agent that's never sold a house before versus one that's maybe sold a few houses and is trying to figure that out versus one that sold 100 is not the same. So even in that world, right? So when you think about, Sarah's saying, your defined client type, like who are you attracting in? And not necessarily who you're attracting in today, who do you want to be attracting in? You may be saying, hey, I want to build a business that really attracts this profile, this avatar. Who do you want to bring in? Who is your business really set up to serve at the highest level? And building out that process. I think it's so powerful. And today, right, in our world of like AI and technology, the ability to then automate that, if you don't have it written down, that like this is the step. And as Sarah said, like the literally things that you may not think because you've been the practitioner and you're like, I have to write down that step. Yes, you have to write down that step. So what is that step for your process from the time that literally, I think even about the lead funnel, like how does that person come into your world? What happens like right when they come in? What email do they get? What communication do they get? What conversation, what text message, what follow? It's that level of process, right? All the way down. And that allows us, right, to move to the next step, which is what are the conversations and dialogues that are going to happen consistently? Because when those happen consistently, it builds confidence. And when you have the confidence, like the expectations match with the confidence to then ask that question, say that thing, move to the next level is critically important for your team as you're building it out and really building a scalable system. So those conversations are the backbone of scalable sales, right? We used to call it scripts. It's now conversations, right? These are conversations that we're having. This is the backbone of your sales. It removes the guesswork. It ensures, I think this is really important, right? Ensures consistency of your brand, right? How do you want that brand represented across the markets that you serve? So it ensures that. It speeds up the onboarding process. And I think it allows us, as Sarah's looking at, like talking about those numbers, right? When you're looking, it allows you to understand the difference. Some people are like, well, in my market, we hear this a lot, right? Well, in this market, that won't work. In this market, and you have to really, I think, hold the standard of what those conversations are. And I always say, like, we can get creative after we've understood the system. Then there's an opportunity for us to get creative about, hey, here's a nuance or here's a piece that we need to better understand. So what does that mean? That's literally from the first conversation, first call. They call in or you call out, first conversation. What are objections? The answer is like, we think that there's like these million things that people say, but really actually understanding the objection and what that objection's like, what's underlying that objection. Because usually, right, there's a couple of core themes that come up. And the more, I remember the first time that a seller said the objection that we had been practicing. And I literally was like, oh my God, like it's happening. He's literally saying exactly what and I felt so confident because it literally, right? I had a partner and we had been practicing and I was like, this is my moment. Like I'm ready. So it really builds that confidence. And then even at the appointment setting, right? Closing framework, price conversations, each of those things, it's not like you don't have to wing it. And a lot of us, if you're an incredible salesperson, you're probably really comfortable winging it. But your people aren't, right? When you're scaling it, and you're not, again, we're not scaling you, we're scaling your system. So the thing that you say that might be like, of course, that's what Sarah's going to say when she's in Virginia. No, that's not. She doesn't know that. So you have to write it down and you have to practice it. And that I think really is powerful for scaling that system.
So giving your people exactly what to say during each step of the process, and they know what are the common objections and how should I handle them, right? Because what I found is like when they don't know what to say, right? When your sales team doesn't know what to say, you will see them literally avoiding conversations, right? Like the biggest one in my world right now is like price adjustment conversations, right? Mm-hmm. If the agent, right, doesn't know how to have a price adjustment conversation with the seller, they just won't have it. Right. And then we fail that seller. And so like making sure that you have everything documented, right? You've got your conversation framework guides. Your salespeople get that right when they onboard, right? They're going to know what to say when a seller or buyer says something. Oh my goodness, can you start winning when you give them clarity on those things? So that was playbook number 2. Playbook number 3 that has to do with scaling sales is follow-up systems, okay? Follow-up systems really win the game when it comes to sales, okay? And a lot of people, right, like natural entrepreneurs, natural salespeople, right? Like Kymber talked about. When you have a lead, when you have a seller that might not have signed, you naturally are like a dog with a bone, right? Like you do not give up. You will convert it, right? That's partly why you are the leader, okay? Because it's natural for you, right? But what I have found is that is not natural for everybody. They don't know what to do, okay? And so you've got to build follow-up systems and plans into your processes, okay? So when they don't sign that listing agreement, okay, what should your agent do next? Well, at Empower Home, they send a handwritten thank you card. They send, our seller did not sign email number 1. They then call and we tell them exactly what to say. Like then they text them if they don't answer. Like, and this is the text they get, right? So you build out email templates, text templates, a call plan. Like how long should they call until they stop following up, right? So you want to give them the time frame, right? Like an example of this, like, so we've got about 20 seller did not sign follow-up emails. So after a seller doesn't sign, that our agents send out. Well, some agents are going to think that I should send one of those a month. Some agents might think I'm going to send one a day, okay, and bombard the seller in their email box, right? Okay, so like you not only give them exactly what they are sending out in their follow-up and exactly what they say when they call that lead, that opportunity that they went on, but you're also telling them when you do it, right? Because you want to let them know, okay, this is what you do here, and then 3 days later, this is what you do here, right? So it's exact timing, exact messaging, and clear expectations. How that works in my world at Empower Home, and I would love to hear how it works in your world, Kymber, is if one of our agents doesn't follow up with a seller that we met with and 2 weeks go by and we see nothing, no call log, the emails didn't go out, they're not following our set plan, they lose it. Like they lose that opportunity. And that might sound, wow, that's savage, Sarah. Well, yes, it is, because it's savage because you can't scale if you don't have some type of expectation of what's expected in terms of service to the client, service to the opportunity. Okay. And for me, if they're not following up, that's a lack of service. Okay. And so having clear expectations of what's expected of them and what to say, when to say it is so, so powerful when it comes to follow-up systems.
Yes. And I think what you're saying too is where it goes. Because it's not, it's trust but verify, right? So it's not like, well, I did it, but I just did it over here. Or I did it. No, you have to do it. The system is actually also about like where that goes. Because it's giving them the piece and then where they actually document or are sending directly from so that it's also clear. Like, because you can't at scale go back and check all the, like you have to have it exist in a place, right? And I'm curious, Sarah, we are really embracing and racing, right? Even in our Her Best Life world and certainly in my world and the Catalyst Network and it's automation. Like where are the things that we can remove, like the human, like just life happening, and that we want our humans to be as close to other humans as possible. So where are the pieces in the process that if it's a no-show, that they log that was a no-show, right? In our world, if an agent says that they were going to come in and meet with us and do a needs analysis and learn more about their business, and then they didn't, then there's an automatic process that happens that, there's one part of the process that the leader, like the team leader, right, consultant is doing. And then there's another part of the process that is going to be done for them so that we can also start to track and understand what are those pieces. And we know like the data is so powerful of when you talk to like a seller and a buyer, or even an agent, right, that the most agents are going to do that first follow-up, right? They had the appointment, they did the thing, and they followed once, and that's it. And the reality is like, it's really 4, 5, 6 times. It's that the person's actually going to have the response to. So some of this is just about having the system that allows you to stay in the game, because you're going to stay in the game. And in a lot of these sales process, that's what it is, that the salesperson, no matter the industry, right? They want the quick hit. We want the quick fix, the person who's ready today to close out to the other side. And that's 10% of your people. The rest of them, where are the rest of them? Where do they go? And how do we stay connected so that they know what's going on? They know the value, whether that's also that they drop into your long-term nurture. Do they get your newsletter? Do they get your invite to your event? Do they get this thing that allows them to stay connected to you? until they're ready for that sales event to take place. So I think it's such an important piece of where does it go and what's the expectation for it.
Yeah, Kymber just dropped so much gold right there. I was just like, oh my goodness. Okay, so I just want to unpack a couple things she said and double down on it just because it was so good. So the first thing is, to scale sales, you've got to have all of that. What we're talking about is in your CRM. Okay. And in your CRM is where your team is putting their follow-up actions. And what we say at Empower Home is, if it's not in the CRM, it didn't happen. Like, meaning, I don't care that it's in your phone. Like, if it's not in the CRM, right, it didn't happen, because we have to know, to scale sales, leadership has to know what happened, right? So our agent gets notified like literally 10 minutes after they leave a house or leave a buyer appointment, and it has a series of questions on their phone. It just pops up and it says, did it happen? They click yes. Did they sign? They click no. Okay. And then they hit submit.
And that's an automation, right?
That's
not
automation.
Like a person in the back end watching their location. It's automation. It says you had an appointment at 1:00. Appointment should take 90 minutes. And so at the 91st minute, there's something that happens, right?
That's
automatically.
Right.
Nobody's in the back end having to remember to do it. It's an automation, right?
Yes.
Yep.
And then if they hit yes, then a new box comes up that they put in the notes of like, how did it go? Right. And then if they put no for sign that it happened, but then they didn't sign it, there's more automation. The seller will get an email from me or the leader of that location that says, subject line, how did it go? Because we found out that clients will give a more on opportunities, leads, right? Appointments. They will give a more honest answer to someone else, not the salesperson that met with them. So we ask, how did it go? An email, we also send a text, and then there's also a voicemail drop. All of that is automated in the back end.
That's exactly what I wanted you to say. That's automated. Sarah's not at her computer waiting to get the alert and then taking action, right?
Yes.
Like, it is all happening in your back end of your system, which because you had it documented and you knew it was there. And this is such gold for what has to be in place in order to really scale successfully and profitably. Right?
Yeah. So you got to have those systems in place that are sales systems, both for your sales people and your sales leadership team. Right. Next month's episode, we're going to dive into how to scale leadership. And so we're not going to talk too much about that today, but this is critical to have follow-up processes also for your sales leader, because this is the truth. Hope is not a follow-up strategy. Okay. You cannot scale sales by hoping that your sales team knows how to follow up and knows when to follow up. You've got to have it all outlined with as much automation built in as possible, because that's what really makes the machine go.
100%. And I think this intentionality of understanding what is your world like, right? So part of what made you successful, it's like when Sarah talked about your percentages, you knew that percentage and you knew, oh my God, once you knew that, you couldn't unknow that. So understanding in your world, hey, we're going to do it this, our process, right? That's worked for us is that at 90, whatever that minute is that they fill it out. What's the email that goes out after? What's the one that goes out 3 days later? What's the one that goes out 6 days later? That's yours. And what we're looking at a lot is even A/B testing, right? Because we're trying to figure out as things are shifting and automations are happening, does it matter who it comes from? Does it matter what time of day that it's sent? And so being able to start to look at the data that way so that we're understanding, we're getting a higher open rate when we send it at this time. And so let's adjust. But giving it enough time to see it, but just do it. Don't let the lack of information prevent you from putting it into action.
Okay, so today we talked about really only the first 3 playbooks when it comes to scaling sales. But I've got a surprise for you, both Kymber and I do, is next week's episode is actually going to be continuation of this episode, because we've got 3 more playbooks that go with scaling sales, and it will truly transform your business. But the focus of today, we don't want to lose that focus, which is on our first 3, right? So every client type needs a defined conversion process. Playbook number 2, conversations and dialogues create confidence. So having everything documented, knowing when they should do something right, is part of also playbook number 3, which is follow-up systems win the game. So making sure that they know when to follow up, what to say when they're following up, to where your salespeople have clarity on how to win. And so those are the first 3 playbooks that will help you in your business and will help you grow in terms of scaling sales. And these actual playbooks can work across all markets. And so what we want you to do is we want you to take what you learned today and we want you to implement something, execute something from today, and get out there and build a big business and an even bigger life. Thanks for joining us today.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not Keller Williams Realty LLC and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.